Skinned Tom. Tom was a young and attractive man. He liked the ladies and the ladies liked him too. He dated a lot, and once he's dated the best pics from his own hometown, he went looking in the next best place, the next town over. He didn't have to look long and began dating a sweetheart that thought she had a secret that she could tell Tom. She was already married. To and fro, back and forth, from town to town, he went almost daily, carrying on a heated romance with his newest sweetheart. It wasn't long, however, until the woman's husband chanced upon some local town gossip and learned what everyone else seemed to already know already, that his wife had been bedded by a young attractive man named Tom from out of town. The husband wasted no time enacting a plan to catch up with Tom. At the soonest opportunity, he told his wife that his job would place him out of town for the weekend. Nothing seemed amiss, and his wife accepted his notification without question. The husband departed from the house on Friday. He parked his vehicle elsewhere and doubled back on foot to hide in the woods behind the house for a while until evening. Sure enough, early in the evening, Tom had shown up. Picked up his sweetheart to take her out to a lover's lane to do what lovers do. Just as things were warming up, with Tom and sweetheart hot and heavy with each other in his car, the car door was wrenched violently open. Tom found himself face to face with a huge, terribly angry, knife-wielding man. "It's my husband," his sweetheart cried. Her husband yelled, "That's right, and I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget." He pulled her off Tom, clear of the car, and rammed the blade of his hunting knife into her stomach and then flung her aside. Sneering like a madman, the husband turned back to Tom, who blurted, Don't hurt me. I didn't know that she was married." This revelation didn't pull any effect whatsoever on the madman, and he dragged Tom from the car and skinned him alive with his hunting knife. Immediately afterward, the husband left Tom for dead, drove himself to the authorities, and turned himself in. Only by a miracle, once the police had arrived on the crime scene, they found that the wife was seriously wounded but still alive. The police searched the area diligently, but Tom was nowhere to be found at the crime scene. Tom was never found, period. Some say that Tom lives in the woods around Lover's Lane, hiding his disfigurements, where his once handsome features stood out. He still carries the hunting knife, the very same one used by the angry revenge-seeking husband, which took the skin off of him. Some say that he uses the knife to teach others the same lesson he learned on that day that he was skinned. White Screamer. In the small town of White Bluff, there's a famous hollow where a white screamer dwells. No one knows exactly what it is or what its origin is. It's just said to be a white misty form that wails and cries and screams enough to make any person go insane, thus gaining the title the White Screamer. It also has been noted that if one ventures to a spot where they might have seen a white screamer, the grass will be burned away. Allegedly, around the 1920s, a young man built his family of a wife and 7 children, a home, and farm down in the hollow, and every single night they'd wake up to the sound of this awful crying and screaming. So finally, after this young man had had enough, he grabbed his shotgun and ran out into the night, off to find whatever beast was making that awful noise. He climbs to the top of one of the surrounding hills to see if he can spot it, and then hears the sound of screaming. Only it's the voices of his family and children. By the time he can climb down this hill and get back to his home, he finds his whole family dead. The pieces of their bodies thrown around the ground and the floors of the house. You can still drive down into the hollow and see the foundation of the house and the graves of the members. Old Green Eyes. The Army of Tennessee, with the help of a corps and General Lee's army in Virginia, attacked the Federal Army of Cumberland, just south of Chattanooga. The name of the creek there is called the Chickamauga Creek, which means River of Death in the Cherokee language. The battle was fought over the period of 2 days and resulted in 35,000 casualties. It was the second highest number of casualties next to the Great Battle at Gettysburg. The Federal line broke on the second day and raced back towards Chattanooga. General George Thomas organized a defensive line at a place called Snodgrass Hill. Because of his stand there, most of the Federal army was given time to escape, and Thomas earned his famous nickname, Rock of Chickamauga. According to the stories passed down by soldiers who fought there, a strange-looking creature was seen walking among the dead and dying just at dusk. The creature had glowing green eyes, long white hair, and a huge misshapen jaw with protruding fangs. He also wore knee-high boots and a long black cape. Stories of this creature did not end with the battle. It was reported in 1876 the creature was still being spotted on the Chickamauga battlefield. Some believe that the creature was there prior to the Civil War. According to Cherokee Indian folklore, the Chickamauga Cherokees were forced to move from that area because of the presence of witches. In 1976, a park ranger was walking down the road near Snodgrass Hill when he met Old Green Eyes. He said that the creature turned and gave him a devilish grin as they passed each other on the opposite sides of the road. The ranger didn't believe in ghosts at the time of the sighting, but after the incident, he felt as though Old Green Eyes was always watching him from the woods. Many employees and visitors at the park believe they are being watched from the forest even today. There are even 2 car accidents that have been blamed on Old Green Eyes. According to the victims, the creature is standing in the middle of the road with those glowing green eyes. They both swerved their cars to avoid hitting the creature and ended up striking a tree. The Sensabaugh Tunnel. Built in the 1920s, the land was once owned by the Sensabaugh, predominantly Ed Sensabaugh. It was very quickly after sale and completion of the actual tunnel that the hauntings were said to have began. Phantom sounds like footsteps and babies crying could be heard. One tale followed the doomed Sensabaugh family, telling the story of a hobo who stole jewelry, money, and their youngest child. Ed chased him through the tunnel where the thief threw the child into the river beside it, in hopes of sidetracking the distraught father. Still, others say that it's actually Ed who haunts the tunnel, forever walking the earth after he murdered his entire family in their beds, killing them and then himself in the tunnel, just a stone's throw away. Others tell stories of a young woman chased from her home who gave birth in the tunnel. Her child unfortunately never saw the light of day, and their bodies were found the next morning. Another legend, perhaps true, tells of a woman who walked through the Sensabaugh tunnel hoping to find help for her stalled vehicle, but instead losing her life somewhere along the way. Bell Witch. John Bell, a farmer from North Carolina, along with his wife and children, settled in northern Robertson County, Tennessee, in 1804. Their farm consisted of 320 acres of rich farmland that laid along the Red River. They lived a quite peaceful life there for the first 13 years. They were members of the Red River Baptist Church, where John became a deacon. The family grew and became somewhat prosperous. In the late summer of 1817, something would happen that would change their lives forever. Some members of the family began seeing a strange-looking animal around the property. Then, late at night, they started hearing knocking sounds on the doors and outer walls of their house. Later, sounds were being heard in the house. Sounds of gnawing rats on bedposts, chains being dragged through the house, stones being dropped on wooden floors, and then gulping and choking sounds. The family was terrified but kept the problem to themselves for well over a year. When things became intolerable, John confided in a neighbor, James Johnson. He invited Mr. and Mrs. Johnson to spend the night. After several nights of witnessing these strange things, Mr. Johnson suggested that more people should be told, and a committee was formed and an investigation was started. It was not long before people were coming from miles around to hear and witness this unseen force that was terrorizing the Bell home. Before long, this unseen force had gained enough strength that it now had a voice. When asked who and what it was, it gave different identities. It once stated that it was the witch of a neighbor woman named Kate Batts. This is what many people believe, and from then on, this unforeseen force was called Kate, the Bell's witch. It seemed that Kate had two main reasons for visiting the Bell home. The main one was to kill John Bell. For what reasons, no one really knows, but she never gave a reason. The second was to stop John's youngest daughter, Betsy, from marrying a certain neighbor boy named Joshua Gardner. Over the next 3 years, Kate tormented members of the Bell family almost daily. John and his daughter Betsy were the ones who received the worst of the physical abuse. Betsy had had her hair pulled, she was pinched, scratched, stuck with pins, and even beaten, while John Bell began suffering from spells of swelling of the throat and the feeling of a stick being stuck sideways in his throat. Then came the twitching and jerking of the facial muscles. Kate would blast him with curses and hideous threats during these spells. As time went on, John Bell became weaker and weaker. Kate was becoming well known and drew large crowds of people. She seemed to be very intelligent in many things, the Bible, people's past and future. She could be in two places at the same time, miles apart. She, Kate, finally accomplished her mission for coming to the Bell farm. On December 20th, 1820, John Bell had died. It's believed that he was poisoned by Kate, and Kate took full credit for his death. And then in March of 1821, young Betsy broke off her engagement with Joshua Gardner. Kate then bid everyone farewell and promised to return in 7 years. And she did return in 1828 for a few short weeks. During the visit, she came to the home of John Bell Jr. and had long talks with him about the past, the present, and the future. She made some predictions for the future. Kate also said that there was a reason for John Bell's death. However, she never said what the reason was. After the second visit, her next return would be in 107 years. That would have been 1935. But some believe that Kate never left the area due to all the strange things that occur in and around the town of Adams and the Bell Witch Cave over these many years. Those were 5 urban legends from Tennessee. I hope you ghouls enjoyed. I sound a million times better. I think I am finally over that freaking terrible sickness. So, I am no longer down with the sickness. Ha ha ha. But as always, ghouls, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.